Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, Junebug. We got our butts handed to us by Georgia. That wasn't much fun. Guess we're going to talk about that a little bit. Then we'll probably talk about Missouri, our next game up, and our college football playoff possibilities. We're going to get into all that. And this is my brother, Junebug. I've talked about him quite a bit. He was the captain of the UT golf team back in the day, and he plays professional golf. And some of you have probably seen him on TV playing in senior opens and things like that. And he's had some success with that, obviously. But he loves UT football, and he's got the worst case of battered Vols syndrome ever, but he's been recovering this year, like in a significant way. So that's been real helpful. But we did take a beat down Saturday, so we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that the Georgia game gave me a little bit of the symptoms back from the battered Vols syndrome, but we're still 8-1. And what a great season we had. Really incredible if you think about it. If you told me we'd be 8-1 at this point in the season, who wouldn't have taken that?
Yeah, that's 2 games better. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of Vols fans down deep need to be feeling like this.
Well, you just never know when another beast might come down out of the forest. You understand, don't you, Thumbaloo?
Yeah, 8-1 is pretty. I'm pretty proud of that, and I think the rest of us probably should be too. That's 2 games better than I was hoping for. I had a 6-3 after 9. I had us losing to Alabama, LSU, and Georgia, and we've only lost 1 game. And look, that was the one that was away at Samford, and we're going to talk about the noise and the disruption of the offense and all that. But like I say, I'm liking our position, especially for college football playoff.
Oh yeah, everything's right in front of us. If you can win these next 3 games, which you should be, you're probably going to be a double-digit favorite in every one of them. If you can just handle your business, I think you're really golden to get in the playoffs.
So in other words, you're saying just because we lost this 1 game, nothing is over.
Yes. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
Germans? Forget it, he's rolling.
So yeah, I mean, look, we're in good shape. Let's call it like it is. We got our butts whooped down there in Georgia, and I don't mind telling you, it was frustrating. It looked to me like the crowd played a huge role in that game. Had this game been at Neyland, I think it would have been very different. I'm not saying we would have won, but I am saying it would have been within 1 score, in my opinion, because we would have been able to move the ball. We had 8 times where we had false starts. That's going to mess up your momentum so many times, and you're trying to now get 15 yards instead of 10 against the number 1 defense in the country. You can't do that, and it really messes up your momentum when you're a fast-paced team. So now you've not only got an extra 5 yards you got to go, but you've lost the element of surprise by going fast, which is when we normally get defenses on their back feet and they start making mistakes. So each time that gave them more time to prepare for whatever play we were going to do.
Yeah, it really was. You can either word it as Georgia's defensive line won the game or our offensive line lost the ball game. I was really surprised at that because we had played a big game down at LSU and we were able to handle it. It looked like we were just shell-shocked from the beginning of that ball game. And I was really surprised that we didn't make any adjustments or do something, either quick passes to the running backs or whatever the adjustment could be. We could not overcome their defensive line. The rush on Hooker, he was just he looked helpless back there at times.
Yeah, I believe, was it Jalen Carter, the guy that had come back from the injury? He was very disruptive in the middle, was he not, in the defensive line? I think he's actually, let's pull him up.
Well, they had 6 sacks.
Yeah,
during the ball game.
Well, this guy, I think he put a lot of pressure on us, and he was kind of the key guy in the middle, this Jalen Carter fella. He really caused some problems for us, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, but it looked like the moment was too big for our football team, which I'm sad to say that, but Georgia had a chip on their shoulder, and we were not ready for it, which was shocking because our coaches have been able to prepare this team just beautifully throughout the whole season, and it looked like they were just beating like a drum.
Well, it's the first time they've really dealt with some serious crowd noise. LSU never really got it going. First of all, it was at 11 a.m. Central Time in Death Valley, and so they weren't all that fired up. Plus, they started out with a turnover, and we scored immediately, and then another screw up by their punt team, and we're up 10-0, and we had the momentum. So they never really got into the game, the crowd that is, whereas Georgia's crowd was in it from the second that ball got kicked.
Yeah, when we got that turnover in the first quarter there, and we're going down the field, and we get another false start penalty, and you end up having to kick a field goal. If you don't get that, if you somehow score a touchdown there to go up 7-0, maybe the game's different. I doubt it. They just looked like they were better than us.
Yeah. So you had the combination. And like I say, what they did was they gave us the Neyland treatment. The treatment that we've been giving every team at Neyland Stadium is what they gave to us. Only I guess it's a Sanford treatment. So I'm sure while you were watching that game, you were getting a little bit upset. I know I was using quite a bit of profanities that I don't want to put on this channel, but it got pretty bad for me.
You don't need to hear things like that. You just a boy.
That's right, y'all don't need to be hearing that. I'm not going to put that on this channel. But yeah, it was a very frustrating game to watch, no doubt. And it just didn't feel like we were ever in the game. It really didn't. They just had the momentum from the scratch.
You know, our defense, I mean, when you look at the game, if you just look at the stats and the score, you think, well, the defense did okay. Yes and no, because in the second half, Georgia looked like they took their foot off the gas, started running the ball to shorten the game, and really didn't try to attack us much offensively. So, again, we're probably another year or two away from being at the quality of Georgia is, but I'd like to see that game on a neutral site.
You may get to. That's the reality. You may get to see that exact game on a neutral site where we have half the crowd and they have half the crowd. That would be a very interesting game. They still might win, but I think it'll be a much closer game if we can, keep our offense going the way they should.
The only worry now is you've kind of got a blueprint to stop us, and Georgia said, we're going to man up on our defensive backs, on your wide receivers, and we're just going to rush the heck out of you. And it worked for them. Now, having said that, I don't think there's many teams that have that type of player that can go out on an island as cornerbacks and cover our wide receivers. Alabama looked like they were trying to do more zone stuff, and we killed them with that. But unfortunately, the recipe on us is out there. Now, like I said, does the other team have those type of players that can play like that?
I don't know of any team that has the secondary that Georgia has that can man up on a Cedric Tillman or man up on a Jalen Hyatt and play 50-50 with them, or a Brew McCoy. There are very few secondaries that can do anything along those lines, much less have safeties and cornerbacks that are, basically all Americans. Georgia's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to recruiting. They've been in the top 3 for the last 7 years, and here we haven't been in the top 10 the last 7 years. So, like I said, I think they're probably the only team that can do what they did. Plus, they're going to have – how many teams are going to have that crowd where we're going to have 8 false starts?
That the same thing happened to Alabama when they were at Neyland. They had a bunch of false starts too.
Yep. Yeah, at Alabama, had that game been at Alabama, we probably don't win that game.
And bring up your other point, Kirby. I remember Kirby said after the game, I think he said, we have 0 players we got out of the portal. And I go, well, you've had like the top recruiting class for the last 6 years. You don't need anybody out of the portal.
Yeah, that's
when you have that many 5-stars on your ball club.
That's a ridiculous comment. I mean, my gosh. Yeah, when you're number 1 every year in recruiting, and then to brag, I didn't have to go to the portal. Well, I guess you didn't. You got 18 5-stars. There, Kirby. 18 5-stars, and I didn't have to go to the portal. Well, good for you. That's like a millionaire saying, well, I didn't have to pinch pennies during the virus. Well, that's because you've got $1 billion. Oh, wow, that's amazing. So, yeah, it's just that's a very unique team. They're clearly the best team in the country, and I don't think it's really that close. Tennessee was probably the only team that could really give them a good game at a neutral site maybe. I don't know who's going to give them a good game at Georgia if they're ready to play. Now, they went up and slept walk against Missouri and slept walk against it wasn't Colgate, it was Kent State. If you get a team that's on their back feet and they're not even looking at you and caring about you, but look, they were ready for us. I mean, there was blood in their eye. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and I even heard Stinson Bennett, somehow his phone number leaked out to some people, and apparently a bunch of UT fans were calling him and leaving messages on his phone.
Oh, God.
And so he was double motivated for that ball game, and he played well.
I doubt that affected him any, though, because that guy, he's pretty clutch. I've heard a lot of Georgia fans that are kind of down on him, and I'm sitting here going, you know why? Because you're so spoiled and you're so used to great play there with all those 5 stars that, you don't respect him because he's a walk-on. And you don't see from the outside looking in that he's a very good quarterback. He's a very good college quarterback. He may not make it in the pros. I'm not saying he will. But as far as a college quarterback, he's excellent. He just flat out is. And he's
a national championship.
And he was the player of the game in the national championship, wasn't he?
And he looked like the Heisman Trophy winner Saturday, not our guy.
He played great. And it's also easier to play great when you're not getting rushed. We did not put pressure on him.
Well,
no.
And that's the bottom line, because you can have Peyton Manning back there or Tom Brady. If you're getting rushed on those two guys, they're not going to play well.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. And we have been able to get some pressure on quarterbacks most of the year, but we weren't able to get it on him. And then on top of it, he's sneaky quick. He ran that one touchdown on us that it looked like we were going to sack him, and most quarterbacks would have gotten sacked there. Stetson got away with it. Bryce Young would get away with it. There's a few quarterbacks that can do that, whereas if it was Will Levis would have been tackled easily, and so it makes it difficult.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised at our offensive line because of how well we played against Alabama's defensive line. We just were not effective at all on the offensive line.
Yeah, and I tell you, the thing that stunk the most was the national media, and I told you folks they were going to turn on us if we ever lost a game, and they exactly did. This is how they reacted to our loss. Yep. So they've turned on us, which hey, that's okay. They'll turn back in our favor if we start winning the next few games. And let's talk about our next 3 games, and especially Missouri. We've got Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. Like I said, we're going to be, like you said, we're going to be favored by 2 touchdowns in every game or more, I would think.
Yes. Missouri could be a little bit of a problem. Their defense is pretty darn good. In fact, they only gave up 26 points to Georgia. That's one thing they can hold their hat on is defense, but their offense is not very good at all.
Yeah, we were looking at their numbers, and they only average about 350 yards a game, but their defense has been strong. They've only been giving up about 300 yards a game, so that's going to be the key. But I think we'll be able to move the ball on their defense. It's going to be at Neyland, which is a big positive. I wish it was at night, but it's at noon. But I think we'll be very prepared, and I think the crowd will be fired up, especially after this loss. They're going to be looking for a comeback and something to feel good about.
Well, and the other good part about the game Saturday is it's senior day. So they're going to be doubly motivated to play well. So I look for Tennessee to have a great day.
So, yeah, if we take care of business and we take care of Missouri, and I think that's probably – well, and South Carolina is at South Carolina. So that, you got to be a little careful when you play a team away. Fortunately, South Carolina's, they're not so good this year, and they don't have great quarterback play. So I don't expect a miracle out of them, but, they'll be ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly they should announce the game here shortly. But if it's a night game, that does add a little more pop to the game.
Well, you've been down South Carolina to several of their games, and they get pretty loud.
Absolutely, and I'm going this coming Saturday as well. So it can be a little house of horrors down there if it's a Saturday night in Columbia.
Yeah, they get pretty loud, and they start playing that rooster crap.
Yep.
And all that crap.
All right.
So that's what it is. That's so annoying. They wear that out. Look, I know a lot of people are down because we lost the game, but understand, again, we're 8-1. We're looking great for the college football playoff. We've got, TCU that's undefeated. You've got Georgia that's undefeated. You've got Ohio State and Michigan. So there's 4 teams ahead of us in the rankings, and 2 of those got to play each other. So either Ohio State or Michigan's going to have a loss. So that will put them down to a worse resume than us because they will have lost to a team that's not number 1, and they will have not beaten any top 10 teams. And we've beaten 2 and played 3. So
exactly. And before we had our game Saturday with Georgia, I don't know if anybody's seen the ESPN playoff predictor percentage they had out. and they had us like at a 61% chance of getting to the playoffs. After the loss to Georgia, now we've got a 64% chance of getting in the playoffs. So
yeah, it went up
because of the, like you said, the loss. The Clemson loss was huge for us.
That was the big one.
And the Alabama loss was huge.
Yeah, and Alabama was a monster too, because if we'd have been stuck with one loss just like them, and then they say they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, we're creaked. Yep. We'd have been creaked on that one big time. So even if LSU does beat Georgia, which I don't think they would in the SEC championship game, they've got 2 losses, and we killed them at Death Valley. So I don't see them getting in ahead of us. I just don't, even if they beat Georgia, because their resume wouldn't be there. It would be very hard to justify that. So, and I also think TCU will lose. You know, they got to play Texas and Baylor, and they're a top 20 team at best. They're probably a 15 to 25 team, and they're probably going to lose one of those games anyway. These things have a tendency to take care of themselves. And the other good thing is, in coming years when they go to 12-team playoff, you're not going to have to worry about all this. And I think Josh Heupel will keep us in those playoffs on a regular basis, the way this offense moves and the way he's recruiting.
Yeah, it really is awesome to think we're talking about being in the playoffs and where this team was 2 years ago.
Yeah, if you'd have told me we were going to be in the playoffs, I would have said this.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not kidding at all when I say that. I would have said you're insane. There's no way. We will be lucky to go 9-3, and I was being optimistic with that number. You know, there was people giving me grief. Oh, that's too high. We can't win that many. Well,
I had us going 7-5. So
yeah, well, yeah, but you've got the battered ball syndrome, so that's typical. You know, you can't stand the thought of getting all excited and get let down.
Yep, that's what happened Saturday. But I'm still positive. I feel good about us, and I expect us to run the table here. And we got a big, hopefully big bowl game or playoffs that looking forward to.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be in. Well, all right, folks, we just wanted to go over a little bit of this Georgia game again and talk about our upcoming games and bring Junebug on to let you see him again. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. I've only been doing this a few months. I could use some subscribers. Hit that button. Doesn't cost you anything. And hope you did like the content. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk J.